Hi everyone, welcome back to Third Academy's Web3 Community Management 101. This is week 4, and it's been a very interesting 4 weeks so far. And we've had the opportunity to talk about community management, community engagement, how to get started. And I'm sure that if you have been following the class by now, you feel very confident of your skill and the opportunities that await your career in the space as a community manager. So thank you for your dedication to improving your skills and your knowledge and creating a very profitable career path and fulfilling career path for yourself. So if you're hearing my voice, my name is Rita and I'm the community manager for Third Academy. Uh, I'm so excited to be here every week. It feels like my excitement goes up by 100%. So this is week 4 and this is the seventh class that we have had, and I feel like I'm on a 700% level of excitement. But yeah, all right. So let's move on to the content and the agenda for today. The next slide, please. So for this week, we're talking about community leadership and incentives and how you can be a community leader. Paige, are you there? Let's move to the next slide. Thanks. All right. So this week we know the previous slide before this. Thanks. Yeah. So this week we're talking about community leadership and incentive, a very important topic for that's important for your journey in the Web3 community management space. And for today, we'll talk about community leadership and what you need to be a community leader, community incentives, intrinsic versus extrinsic. I have a very unique story that I want to tell about this, but when we get into the class, you hear my story. We'll talk about intrinsic incentive, the ties, extrinsic, and then we'll talk about the common goals. Why do people use incentive? Why do projects use incentives to motivate their members to take action, and then common examples, right? I'm sure you have seen this take place, you have seen this come to play, but because you were not so informed, you didn't know if that was intrinsic or extrinsic, and this class is going to be an eye opener for you to determine the type of the actions that you have taken and the kind of incentives that have motivated you to take action. And then we talk about best practices to avoid over relying on these incentives, and then how you can represent the community to the stakeholders. Let's get started. What is community leadership and who is a community leader? Community leadership is simply the ability to inspire and motivate others to work together to achieve a common goal. It's about building relationships, creating trust, and fostering this sense of belonging. So, as a community leader, you are passionate about your community and committed to making it a better place, right? So, it's really about empowering and enabling the community to achieve its goal. And also, it's also about helping your community to navigate this ever changing Web3 landscape to make a positive impact where everyone has the capacity and the opportunity to contribute. As a community manager, you're also a lead in the community. You're also acting in the capacity of a community leader. But what do you need to have in place before calling yourself a community leader? Right? So before you can say I'm a community being a community leader, It's just taking one step ahead of the conventional ways that we know how community management is done, right? So it's taking the extra step and motivating your members to take action. Let's move on. Now, what do you need to become this community manager? There are four critical skills that you need to become a community manager. The first is critical leadership skill, problem solving, conflict resolution, and building relationships. Critical leadership. What does it mean? Let's move on. So on the next slide, let's talk about critical leadership skill. What are the skills that you need to have, right, to help you on the journey of becoming a community leader? Now, the first is communication. We have communication, we have decision making, we have teamwork, leadership, adaptability, and integrity. So, as a community manager, uh, you must be able to communicate verbally and in writing with community members, clearly articulating the project goals and objectives, and listening to and understanding the community members' feedback. Now, the decision making skill is also about your ability to make decisions that are in the community's best interest. And one way that one thing that has stuck out for me for a lot of community managers is just this ownership that comes with managing a community, right? So as you're managing a community, it feels there's this ownership, right, that you have, that motivates you to take action that you can as well pass on to the community, right? Also give them that sense of ownership and that sense of belonging. And then when we talk about teamwork, you know it's also important for you to function effectively with others within the team and with the community members. And then we talk about leadership, and then adaptability. The Web3 space is constantly evolving, and you need to be able to adapt, right, to the conditions that are present or that are available for your community at that point in time, and be willing to change strategies, because most of the strategies that used to work in building communities are most of them have evolved into newer ways that we used to bring people together. So you need to be able to learn things quickly and be able to adapt to these new changes. And also integrity, need to be honest and trustworthy, be able to build trust with community members while also upholding the values of the community. In addition to this, you must also have a strong understanding of the Web3 ecosystem. Remember, at the beginning of the class, we mentioned that as a community manager, you need to understand the types of communities that surround the Web3 ecosystem, and continue to stay up to date, right? Because that way you'll be able to communicate the benefit of Web3 to your members and help them navigate the challenges that comes with the space. Now, when we talk about problem solving, I'm sure this is not the first time that we've heard um, the word problem solving. The next slide, please. As a community leader, you need to be able to solve problems. So it can be anything from troubleshooting technical issues, right, to resolving disputes between community members. So you also need to be able to identify and solve problems that arise within the community, and be able to think critically and develop fair solutions for all community members. So some tips that can help you in solving this problem are being proactive, right? So you need to take action before problem arises. Be bold and identify potential issues before they become serious. You need to be transparent, keep the community informed about what you're doing to solve this problem. Be collaborative, right? You can working together with the community. Don't try to solve problems on your own. Work with the community to develop solution, and then be patient. Problem solving takes time. Whether you are troubleshooting a technical issue, your member is a community member is having issues with your platform, with your products, and you are responsible for solving this problem at that point in time, or for troubleshooting with the community members. You need to be patient, and also when you think that problems can arise, you need to be proactive and deal with these problems before they arise and make things easy for your community member. Also, you need to have the let's move on. You need to be able to deal with conflict, right? Conflict is inevitable in any community, but it can be incredibly challenging in Web3 communities where decentralization is strongly emphasized in most, right, in many of the communities that exist. What do you do when chaos rises in your community? So, some tips that can help you get started is first, you need to acknowledge the conflict. Don't try to pretend or ignore it's not happening. Right? That's one mistake that I see a lot of community managers do. They pretend as if the problem is not existing, and that can cause more problems. So don't act as if it doesn't exist. The sooner you acknowledge, the issue, right, the sooner you can resolve it. And also stay calm and professional. um it's essential to stay clear and professional when dealing with conflict. So this means avoiding personal attacks, right? As a community manager, stay away from personal attacks and focus on the issue at hand. So it's also necessary for you to respect all parties involved, even though you disagree with them. So avoid personal attack and let your focus be only on the issue at hand and how you can resolve it. You also need to listen to all sides of the story. Before resolving a conflict, you must understand the perspective involved. So understand the perspective that is involved. Take time to listen to everyone and try to see things from their own point of view. And then seek for common ground. Look for areas where the parties involved can agree. This will help you build trust and then create a foundation for resolving the conflict. And finally, you need to be creative. There is no one size fits all approach to resolving conflict in a Web3 community. So be creative and come up with a solution that you know works for everyone involved. So let's give an example to further drive home our point. For example, a member of your community or a member of a Web3 community has been accused of plagiarizing someone else's work, right? So as a community manager, you can investigate the allegations, and if you find them credible, you could remove the plagiarized content and warn the member, right? You could also require the member to credit the work's original author, right? That way you have been able to, find a way to um, deal with that conflict. And, if you cannot resolve the conflict alone, there are sometimes that, you may not be able to resolve the conflict alone. So, consider using a mediator, right? So, a mediator is usually a person who can help the parties involved in the conflict communicate and find the solution that works for everyone. So, one point that you must understand is conflict is a part of every community, right? So, it's a normal part of every community. It can be challenging, but by following these tips, you can increase your chances of resolving conflict fairly and respectfully. And then let's talk about the fourth part of this, which is building relationship. One of the most critical aspects of community leadership is building relationships. This means building relationship with community members, with stakeholders, and with other community leaders. Let's move to the next slide, please. To display practical leadership skills and build healthy relationship where it matters, some tips that you can use is one, be genuine. People can tell when you are honest, right? So be yourself and let your personality shine, right? So let your personality shine. Share your experiences and your stories. If the members are aware that you are not perfect, so sometimes you can also be having challenges. And when members share their challenges, you can be like, oh yeah, I've also had that challenge, and yes, how I dealt with it, right? You have also like don't let your personality shine and show the member that, oh, you're not alone. I've had to go through this particular issue, and this was how I resolved it. Also be approachable. Make yourself available to community members and the stakeholders. Be open to answering questions and providing support. If there's a community discussion that's happening, participate, right? Participate in community discussion, answer questions, share helpful content. This will help you to get to know your community members and build a reputation as a knowledgeable and valuable resource. And also be supportive, be there to celebrate the community's success, right? So if there's a community that has just landed a job and they've always shared the story of how they're looking for a job and now they have that job, celebrate with them, right? So celebrate their success. Also, when they're going through a tough time, also offer support. And then get to know your members on a personal level, right? So building relationship in this case goes beyond what happens in the general chat, right? So get to know them. This means learning about their interests, their goals, and their challenges. So from time to time, you could set up one-on-one meetings with community members, right? Just to get to know your members and how you can better help them. This is a great way to know them personally. And then finally, provide mentorship and support. So if there is an area that you have a particular expertise, offer to mentor your members interested in learning more about it, right? That way you can build trust and rapport with them. So investing in relationship can create a more supportive and engaged community. Investing in relationship as a community manager, is one of the best way to create an active community. When members have a strong relationship with each other and with the community members, they are more likely to be engaged, to stay retained and trusting. And this can lead to several benefits for the organization. And then remember that community leadership is a journey, not a destination. So as you're moving towards becoming a leader in your community, to learning how to solve problems, how to resolve conflict, how to have this critical leadership skill and build relationship, remember that it's a journey, it's not a destination, right? So building an engaged or thriving community takes time, effort, and dedication. But if you're passionate about your community and willing to work, it's one of the most rewarding experiences that you can have. Now, let's talk about community incentives. Let's move to the next slide. Incentives. Incentives in Web3 communities are rewards or benefits, right, that you give to members for participating in and contributing to the community. So incentives can either be financial or non-financial. And they can be provided for a variety of reasons. So think about all of the times that you've had to take an action, right, in the context of Web3, in the context of the communities that you belong to, that you had to take an action, because there was, a benefit that was attached to such action. So think about the time that you had to create content for a community because there was a benefit, could be financial or non-financial. Think about the time that you had to, there's a benefit for engagement, like in most NFTs community, before they give you whitelist, you need to have level 20, you have to achieve certain levels in the community and engage with other members, right? So think about all of those times, right? For there are also activities that are can incentivize all this we have on the screen, contributing to code, translating language, promoting the community on social media. Incentives are essential in communities because they help to motivate members to participate and contribute. They can attract and retain members, encourage participation and reward contributions. So when members are rewarded for their contributions, they are more likely to stay involved in the community and to continue contributing. How do you use incentives to motivate your community to take action? Let's move on. In Web3, incentives can take on two distinct forms: intrinsic and extrinsic incentives. So, like the story I mentioned that I was going to say from the beginning, at one time I had this person, I was in a community and I had this person who went in for a community manager's interview And he got asked one question, and he was asked how would he intrinsically motivate members to take actions, right? And he didn't really know what to say. He didn't really know what to say. And when we had the call, I had to take that time to explain that for him. So what that goes to show is that there are a lot of founders, there are a lot of um stakeholders in the community who are more concerned about how you can how members that are intrinsically motivated to show up. Yeah. So intrinsic. So imagine you're playing with your friends and you have a lot of fun, right? You're not thinking about getting a reward. You're just doing it because you enjoy it. That is what intrinsic motivation is. It's when you do something because it is fun or exciting, not because you expect to, get something out of it. Here's another example. So imagine you use a DeFi protocol, right? So your favorite DeFi protocol, let's say Aave, for instance, because you support the project and find it to be a valuable tool for financial inclusion, right? Especially with lending and borrowing. You're not thinking about getting airdrops from Aave, but you're excited to see it succeed and grow. You believe that DeFi has the potential to, change the financial system, revolutionize the financial system, and make it more accessible to everyone. That is an example of an intrinsic motivation. So it's important because it can help you learn and achieve things you are interested in, right? So attending this class also, we can also say that you are intrinsically motivated to do that, right? So it can help you learn and achieve things you are interested in, right? So they are essential for everyone, but especially for communities, because intrinsically motivated members are more likely to show up, stay engaged and retain. Now, as a community manager or as a community leader, how can you help members develop intrinsic motivation? So you can provide them with opportunity to do things that they enjoy, help them set goals and achieve them, praise them for their effort and their accomplishment, notice them, celebrate them, create an environment that is supportive. Right? Intrinsic incentive is a powerful force that can help us to learn and grow. So it can be things like sense of community, right? So feeling a part of a group, you can participate in a community because you feel a part of that. You feel like you're a part of that group of like-minded people working towards a common goal, right? The next is personal growth. You just like we mentioned with this class, right? You're concerned about learning a new skill, learning about community management, gaining new knowledge and developing your expertise, right? So your personal growth is why you are here, right? So, and then enjoyment. There are also people who take part in communities because they take pleasure in the activities that are happening in the community, and then satisfaction, feeling a sense of accomplishment, from the work that one does, right? So it can be from helping the project reach its goals, and then believe in the project. There are people who, when we talk about building communities from scratch, when we say there are two sets of people you would attract, those who believe in the project and those who just want to make money. Both are important, right? So it's good that you have a balance of both in your community, right? At no certain number. Then we also have sense of status and accomplishment. Right? So members of Web3 communities, they may feel sense of accomplishment when they can participate in and contribute to the community in meaningful ways. Right? So this can be true for members who can achieve high recognition or influence within the community. All right. So we spent 30 minutes into the class. If you have any question, um, you can put them on the chat, or at the end of the class, you can just unmute your mic and ask a question. We've gone halfway into our class, and we have 30 more minutes to go. So there's a view at the back of the class that I like so much, right? And I want us to, move to the back of the campus of the lounge, and let's enjoy the remaining part of the class from there. So let's do that within the next 1 minute. Yay, let's go. Just double click on anywhere. If you don't know how to get up from your seat, just double click, and I'm going to lead the way. Love the sound of the birds. Nice. Wow, seven figure. Is that you? I like your hairstyle. It looks very fancy. Just move close to any chair and click on it to have your seat. Nice. Of this water. Yeah, so I think we can get started. All right, do we have everyone here? Yes, I think so. All right, now let's talk about extrinsic incentives. We have talked about intrinsic incentives. Let's talk about extrinsic incentives. So let's give another scenario to help our understanding. So imagine you're playing you're involved in a GameFi project, right? Game and finance, a GameFi. I'm sure we've all heard of that. And you earn a badge for completing a level. You're happy because you earned the badge, but also because the badge represents your accomplishment. That is what extrinsic motivation is. It is when you do something because you expect to get something out of it. So there are external rewards that encourage individuals to engage in a particular behavior or activity, right? So, you know, extrinsically motivated people take action because there's an external motivation to do so. And this usually comes from monetary rewards, recognition, or social status. So it can take the form of the expectation of a prize or the avoidance of a punishment. So one thing about extrinsically motivated people is that they will continue to perform a task, even though it might not be in and of itself rewarding. It can be a powerful force. Extrinsic incentive can be a powerful force, right? It can help you learn things that you are not interested in. and help you achieve goals that you will not otherwise be able to achieve. So think about all the time that let's say there was a trend contest and on Twitter for a Web3 project, and you had to do your research, you had to read through the white paper, you had to go through their social media pages, just to understand what the project is so that you can create a great thread for that project. And then luckily for you, you end up winning that reward, right? So it has motivated you to take that action. However, it is extrinsically incentive can be very effective in motivating members, but it's vital to use them carefully. If you rely too heavily on extrinsic incentives, members may become motivated to participate in the community for the wrong reasons. They may start to see the community as a way to make money or get something out of it, rather than as a place to connect with others and contribute to something meaningful. So most communities that have a revenue stream, lean towards more extrinsic incentive as a way to give back. So if you see a lot of DeFi projects where you have to earn rewards for providing liquidity, right? There's a lot of financial rewards that are there. So it can take the form of tokens, airdrops, free airdrops given to members for their participation. I mean, we have all seen this happen time without number. Special events, early access to events, meetups, better access, giveaways and prizes, contests, raffles, and other promotions, discounts, perks, right? So people use these are extrinsic incentives that motivate people to take action. Now, let's look at the common goals. Let's move on to the common goals. Why do people use incentives? Why are people concerned about using incentives to motivate their members to take action? What goal do they have, right? So we have four goals that are listed here: to increase engagement, motivate members to remember we talked about NFT whitelist. To get access to the whitelist to mean the NFT, you have to engage in discussions in the community, right? They use that to increase their engagement. That's one of the goals that they have. And then create hype, also to attract new members, right? So let's say this can also be in the form of like a referral contest, and the highest referral gets to go home with a financial reward, right? That's the goal that they have. They also have to reward loyal members, right? Incentives can, use it to reward dedicated members and to build a strong community culture. So if you have a culture that you want members to take part in, it can, be a great way for you to motivate members to collaborate and work together. So overall, incentives are a powerful tool that can be used to grow, Web3 communities, right? So we've mentioned, we've given example of we gave you a scenario of intrinsic incentives in play and also extrinsic incentives in play, right? So let's give one more example. Let's move to the next slide. Let's give one more example to help understand it. So think about any DAO that you know, right? Let's talk about extrinsic. So think about any DAO that that offer members token to participate in governance discussion and vote on proposals. This is actually an example of an extrinsic incentive. Remember, we mentioned the different types of incentives in the extrinsic. When we talked about extrinsic, tokens, airdrops, special perks, early access, right? So as members are motivated to earn tokens, right, and to participate in the project, right? So another example of intrinsic could be a Web3 community that hosts a monthly meetup for members to network and share ideas, right? So this is a good example of an intrinsic incentives. If members are motivated to show up, to engage, to participate, because they enjoy connecting with other community members, and it's also an opportunity for personal growth. Now let's look at some of the best practices. Let's move on to the best practices. So the first thing you want to make sure when using incentive as a community manager, um, when using incentives, right? Now that you understand the different types of incentives, you know, At any time in your journey, feel free to come back to this lesson to refresh your memory and the type of, if you want to motivate members, to understand the type of incentives to use, right? So the first thing is to make sure that it's aligned with the community's goal. Remember how I mentioned that to increase engagement, one of the goal that they have, they'll incentivize discussions, right? So you have a whitelist. If you show up, if you get to level 10, if you get to level 20, right, that is aligned with the goal that they have, right? So that's one. Make sure it's aligned, that you are incentivizing the action or the behavior that you want members to take. What do you want members to do, right? Once you know what members to do, you want them to bring in their friends, you want them to share your content, you want them to participate in discussions. That is the action that you should incentivize, right? So design the incentives to motivate them to act, and also be transparent about the incentives, right? So members should know what they are getting and how to get it, right? Just like the trade example we use, you see project, they do $500 trade contest, $100 to 5 persons. They tell you how you can earn it. Write a thread about this protocol, use this hashtag, tag this protocol, submit it. They tell you what to do and how you can earn it, right? So if you're using incentives, intrinsic or extrinsic, make sure that it is you're transparent, and also be creative. There are many ways that you can incentivize your community. So be creative, find ways to make them more unique and more engaging. Now let's move on. Yes, I had one funny story. I was speaking with a friend, and um he mentioned that he has never spoken to the founder of, he was a community manager, and he had never spoken to like the founder, right? So there's always like a hierarchy for information to move, right? But in this case, sometimes as a community manager, you may have direct access to stakeholders, right? When we say stakeholders are the founders, the team members, investors, developers, advisors, and any other organization that are interested in the community. So you may have access to some or all of this group of persons, and you need to represent your community to these stakeholders. So you are the voice, right? You represent the as a community leader, right? For the stakeholders, sometimes they may not understand the needs, the challenges of the community, right? But you understand it because you are more closer to the community. You are the community's voice to stakeholders. You are responsible for representing the community's needs, wants, and getting feedback, right? So you need to ensure that the community's perspective is considered when there is decision making, right? So it's more like, as a community manager, it's more like you are advocating for your community, right? So some tips that you can use. Right. So some tips that you can use when you're representing your community to stakeholders is, let's move on. First, you need to build a deep understanding of your community. Right? You can't advocate for the community if you don't understand what it needs, if you don't understand its pain points. So this means, spending time with community members, listening to their feedback, and understanding their needs and their wants. Right? So to help the community, you must understand the community. Now, once you've developed that deep understanding, their pain point, their need, their goals, regularly communicate with stakeholders. So it could involve providing regular reports that could come like monthly, right? To talk about the community's needs, to talk about the challenges that they have, the challenges that you have in managing and engaging the community. Um, Organizing meetings or keeping them updated on the community's activities and progress. So you need to be transparent and very communicative with this stakeholder. Remember, we explained who stakeholders are. So it sometimes it could be the founders, the team members, the CEOs, right? Just anybody else who have a stake in that community. And you know, keep them informed of the community's perspective, right? That's one of the things that you ought to do as a community leader. If it hasn't been a good month, if you have managed the community in that particular month and it hasn't been the best, right? Feel free to also talk about it. And why you think things are not going well, probably you need more support, right, to help the community meet its goal, right? And what could be done, right? You sometimes you'll be surprised at how much help and support that you can get from the team in helping you to deal with the community. So, be a trusted advisor, right? So, stakeholders should be able to rely on you for accurate and up to date information. Very, very important. You should also be able to provide them with insights and recommendations. So, you can say, based on your understanding of the needs of the community, you can say, this month, let's do more of this. Let's introduce this activity. Let's try this, right? I can't do it alone. I need support, right? So just be a trusted advisor, right? So, and then finally, advocate. We mentioned being an advocate. Advocate for the community's interest. So it could be that in the community, there's one thing that members are always talking about that is one of their need that they need, right? So advocate for the community's interest, right? And especially when there's decision making, right? Make sure that you bring the community's perspective forward, and if the community's perspective is considered. So your job is to advocate for them as a community leader. Remember that being a community leader takes one step ahead, right? So it's just like taking one step ahead of the average community manager. So advocate for your community's interests and ensure that their voices are heard. Now, to recap all that we have been saying, let's go to the next slide. To recap all that we have been saying, let's move to the next slide, please. Thanks. Being a Web3 community manager requires you to be armed with specific leadership skills, like we mentioned, have the ability to solve problems, right? We said be proactive before problems arise, right? Try to solve them and prevent them from, happening, and also build relationship, right? So getting on one-on-one conversation with your community member, can actually help you build relationship with them, providing support, celebrating them, and giving them if there's help that you can offer that the members need, giving it to them, and also developing the right incentives, right? So as a community manager, sometimes your team or the stakeholders may require your opinion on what you think is the best way to incentivize your community, right? So develop the right incentives, if it is intrinsic or if it is extrinsic, right? So most times, for most communities that we see, if you need members to you want to motivate members to take on more, like, harder actions, right? So extrinsic can be very more stressful of actions. Extrinsic can be very effective, for doing that. However, intrinsic incentives are generally more sustainable in the long term, because they are based on the individual's motivation, right? But extrinsic incentives, they are more helpful in the short term. So just like if you are trying to motivate people to learn a new skill, you can use intrinsic, because that sense of accomplishment that comes from discovering something new, right? If you want to encourage people to take a difficult task, you may want to offer extrinsic incentives such as money or financial rewards, right? So you need to find a balance between intrinsic and extrinsic, right? So by offering a mix of both, you can create a community that is engaged, supportive, and productive. Remember, I said that extrinsic does not always have to be you throwing money around, right? It could be giving people early access to your beta, right? Your beta program, or exclusive or discount, or exclusive assets. Just anything that you can think of, right? Based on what we have talked about so far. So remember that this skill that we have mentioned, it takes time, right, to build this skill. But as you progress, in your career. You know, we mentioned before that you need to be able to experiment. Not a lot of things will work. So, feel free to take on new challenges and experiment with community initiatives, right? You will only know what will work or not work when you take action. So don't be scared to, have that ownership and take ownership of the community, helping members to reach their goals. All right. Now we have come to the end of the class. Let's move to the next slide. Now we have a community activity that we've had since we have a community activity that we have had since week 2 of the class, where we started building a strategy on how to manage and engage your community. And this is a continuation of that. Yeah. So this is a continuation of that. And feel free to go back to, I've shared all the slides on Discord and on your email. So feel free to, if you're confused on how to get started, please go through week 1 to week 3. Remember, for week 3, we talked about community engagement and how to engage your community. Right. So from there, we'll pick out 5 activities. Right. So pick out 5 specific activities that you want members to involve in. Could be a meme contest, could be a referral program, it could be hosting events, could be hosting a workshop, right? Just list out 5 that you want to do in your community that you have started with. Identify the goal, right? Is it for engagement? Is it for awareness to grow your community? And then also determine the type of incentive for that activity, if people will take part in it, if there's an internal motivation to do so, or if you need to offer external rewards for that. So thank you very much for coming to today's class. If you have any questions, we still have about 6 more minutes to go. So you can unmute your mic and just ask your question. And you can also meet me. I'm always on Discord if you have any question. If you have a community that you're currently managing and you need help, right, with that, you're having a particular challenge, right? So feel free to reach out on Discord and find a way to work with you to help you solve that issue. So if you're listening from YouTube, or if you're listening to the replay of this class, and you have questions, right? It's not too late to ask your question. Come find us on Discord. We're always there 247. So yeah, thanks for coming to class. Um, I feel like we should do an activity now that we've come to the end of the class. For the last class, Paige taught us how to fly. I don't know how many persons. No, I think I flew into the clouds, and that was a very thrilling experience for me. But Paige, how do we? If I want to fly, how do we fly? Yes, I'm flying. All right. So before we, oh, I hope I don't get into the water. All right. So we have 2 more. We have 3 more. If there are no questions, we have 3 more sections to go. This Thursday we have a section with our guest Tiara, who will talk to us also. She's in the Web3 marketing and consultancy fair, and she's had the opportunities to build communities. So she talked to us, how we can further become community leaders. So it's going to be like a panel discussion. And for next week, we for week 5, we have a section next Monday on community data, how you can use data to make decision. So data driven decision, and now you can use data to better your community members, and common Discord bots that you can use to track this data. And then for our final class, we have a special guest that I'm not revealing. I'm sure most of us have heard about her. She's going to talk to us about starting a career, a profitable career as a community manager. I mean, after that class, you're going to be so energetic and ready to take on your career as a community manager. So please don't miss the remaining of our 3 classes. Remember to we release the link to the class 30 minutes earlier. So remember to come in at your earliest convenience before start of class, so you can have the time to, if you have challenges with loading or if there's any troubleshooting, so we can have the time to deal with that before the start of the class, so that we can have a smooth experience from the start to the end. But don't worry if you came in when the class was on already. You can catch up on YouTube, right? The recording will be available on YouTube. I would also share it on Discord. And then more information will come as we move towards the end of the class, especially with our final. We're going to have final assessment, a test, right? We're going to have final assessment and the community managers guild, if I were to call it so. So it's going to be a long and a profitable ride with TED Academy in helping you to launch your Web3 professional career. So thank you very much for coming to class. The space would shut down in a few minutes. So feel free to meet with other members and just enjoy the space. Thanks, guys, and see you on Discord. Maybe we should take a class picture page. What do you think? Maybe we can have a class picture for today, because I like my feet. I mean, all right. So I think where I'm standing is a nice place. So if we can move towards let's stay close to the waterfall. Don't worry, the water won't get to you. Yes. Um, Faith, do you want to take the picture for us? Is everyone set? Okay. Jameson, do you want to do that for us?
Hey, everybody in frame?
Do you need us to move? Do you need anyone to move?
Zelda, if you could just move closer inside the screen. And actually, you know what? I'll just move over a little bit like this. Yeah, that's it. Everybody face me. About to take a photo.
Sorry, I got stuck.
Yeah, let's try again. Perfect. That's much better.
Okay, sorry, it just walked on its own.
All right, in 3, 2, 1, I'm going to take one.
Let's jump in 3, 2, 1. Jump. Let's do something fun. Yes.
Alrighty, I got you guys.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.